So in this video, we're going to see how to remove things that we don't want in our strings. Just typing in some text here, and I'm typing it in instead of pasting it in because I want to illustrate something that you might run into. So whenever we're defining a string variable and we're typing text in, we need to have quotation marks around the things that we are typing in. That tells Python that it's a string. But we can run into a problem if we have an apostrophe in one of those words, because that looks like a quotation mark. It looks like a single quote, and Python thinks that's the end of the string. There are a couple ways to solve this problem, but one of the easiest things to do is to just change the quotes to double quotes around the whole string, and then you can go ahead and use single quotes as apostrophes inside without messing things up. So the first thing we want to do here is to get rid of all the white spaces in our string. And why do we want to do that? Well, there could be different reasons that we want to do that, but in this case, perhaps we'd like to count all the characters, but we don't want to include white spaces or punctuation marks. So to get rid of the white spaces, what we're going to do is just define a new variable in which we replace all the white spaces with just nothing. So that worked pretty well. We now have a new variable which is exactly the same as our old variable, except all the spaces between the words are gone. Now the next thing that we want to do is to get rid of the punctuation marks. And this is going to be a little bit more complicated. And I'm going to introduce a few things very quickly that I'm not going to tell you very much about. And instead I would like you to just see how to use them. They're tools that you can use, and then later on you can begin to learn more about them and what it is that you're actually doing. As always in programming, there are lots of different ways you could solve this problem. So I'm just going to show you one way to solve it, but know that there are other ways that you could do this, and you could probably come up with some other ways yourself to solve this same problem. So to get rid of things in a string, we need to tell Python what it is that we want to get rid of. And somebody has already conveniently made a list of punctuation marks. So we're going to import those now into Python. So here I've written import string. And string, in this case, is a so-called module, or it's a collection of tools that people have written to allow you to do certain things with strings. String has lots of different aspects to it. You can, among other things, you can search for punctuation. You can use it to look for capital letters or different kinds of white space, because there are actually different kinds of white space. We're just going to use the punctuation aspect of string. So let's just pause for a second to look at what I've done here. First, I imported string, which was this collection of string management tools. And then, as I wrote in the comment, we're going to make a set of all the possible punctuation marks. And that's actually something that is included in string. So if we look at this line of code here and we take it from the back inside the parentheses and read in the other direction, inside string, there are many different aspects to it, as I mentioned. One of them is called punctuation. So this string.punctuation says, give me the part of string, which we just imported, which is a list of punctuation marks. So that's really handy that somebody has already taken the trouble to encode all the punctuation marks for us and put them in this string.punctuation. Unfortunately for us, for our purposes, they're in slightly the wrong format. So instead we're going to take the set of string.punctuation. And we're not going to get into the gory details of why we need to do that right now. You could probably figure it out for yourselves if you poke around a little bit at what is inside punctuation. But just suffice it to say right now, we're going to take the set of string.punctuation, and we're going to put all of that inside of a variable. And here I've called that variable punct for punctuation. So this next bit is also going to go quite quickly, and a little bit later we'll get back to what it is that we're doing here in a little bit more detail. But just hang in there for now. So now that we have a variable punct, which contains a list of all the punctuation marks that we might find in a string that we have entered, we can then use that to find things and remove them from our string. And that's what this line of code here does. So if we go through this again, just like we did for the last line, we could start with the part where it says x for x in B. Well, that just says go through the variable b, which we defined above as being the same as a, just without the white space. Go through b piece by piece and take everything that you find if x not in punct. So take everything that you find unless the thing that you find is in that set of punctuation marks that we defined above as punct. Now take all of those things and join them together and put all of that in a variable, which here I've called sans punct. Then, as always, we can use the print command to go through and check that our code has done what we wanted it to do. So we can print A and print B and print sans punct. And what we should see is that A is the full text that we entered, B is the same text but without the white spaces, and the last one, sans punct, is the same text but without white spaces or punctuation marks.